Welcome to Hoshiai no Sora week 4. Things have been going pretty well in this show, and it's probably become one of my top 3 favorite shows of the season. If it was any other season this entire year, this would have probably been my favorite show, except for the spring season, of course. But we have Psycho Pass, we have Beastars, we have Blade of the Immortal. There are so many good shows this season, it's so hard to pick. So without further ado, let's get started with Stars Online Episode 4. We got a new opening scene this time. We actually have an opening song. The first 3 episodes we didn't get that. This time we get like a full opening song. Before it just used to be like a splash screen and we would cut straight to the episode. I was enjoying that quite a bit, but of course it's anime. Openings are a traditional part of the medium, so let's see what it's like. Yeah, so the opening wasn't anything special. We got heavy use of that watercolor effect, which I'm quite partial to. You put watercolor effects on anything, there's a good chance that I'll like it. And Kazuki Akane's name is featured very prominently in the credits. It both starts and ends it. He also gets a story/editor credit. Clearly, this is like his brainchild, as I've been saying for the past couple of episodes. And it's been produced by 8-Bit Studios, which has been confirmed now. And yeah, let's continue watching. The animation when he just bent down that second was so fluid and smooth, as well as his shot. Like, I keep getting impressed by the animation in the show, and we're just hammering on an old point at this point, but I just like to mention it every time it comes up because I feel like a lot of the times shows don't get credit for animation sequences that are just incorporated into the flow of the show without having some kind of spectacle that's used specifically to highlight it. Usually there's some huge fight scene where you have the Utapon cubes just floating everywhere, and only those moments gets clipped and put on Sakuga blogs. So for whatever reason, I just like to highlight the cool, like, fluid, like bend, like when the tennis racket swings and everything like that. I just feel like we should point it out, because their animation people have been doing really good work on this show in particular. I don't know how they got so good at drawing tennis, but they're really good at it. Ooh, Maki. Maki's like an evil genius of some kind. He decided to switch everybody's roles so that they can see things from other people's perspectives, and their relationship gets defined in a new way because now they're doing things that the other person would. This is like something you do in therapy or something. When you walk into therapy, they're like, can you have a conversation with you acting as your partner and your partner acting as you? This is kind of like that, like illustrated in physical form. That's really interesting. It's only episode 4. We're already getting into like tennis couples therapy. And also, if you watched any tennis show before this, you probably haven't seen anything involving doubles. I know I haven't. And it's a more interesting dynamic in the sense that it's a team game now. So if you leave a shot, your partner has to cover it. So there's this give and take in the sense of, if I can hit this, then you don't have to worry about it. If I miss this, then it's up to you to get my back. It's just an interesting back and forth, which obviously plays into the show's theme of relationship between friends and all that. So I thought that was just a cool way of incorporating the theme of the show into the actual sport that's being played. I'm getting serious Darling in the Franxx vibes here. Like, Maki's like the overseer type person who puts people in different pairs. But obviously in that, it was more like an allegory for like romantic relationships. It may be in this one too. We don't know. It's only episode 4, people. And it's an original, so there's no way to know for sure. But it's interesting to see that Maki's like some kind of weird child psychologist in the sense that he can just tell what people are thinking and do what needs to be done to get them to perform to their utmost. I can understand him having like amazing like athletic abilities, like innate athletic talent. That's fine by me. But where is all this coming from? Like, maybe if they explained it in the sense that he used to be like a club manager for a sports team in his previous school or something like that, it would make more sense. But for right now, I'm willing to go with the flow that Maki can just see people's potential and be like, hey, you two play together. That's how we're going to maximize the potential of this club or whatever. I'm enjoying it so far. Do you think they played the tennis matches out with real people and then just like used that as a reference for their shots? Because it's way too fluid. Like that one-handed overhand shot that Maki just hit, the way that his leg swings back and everything, it was like crazy detailed. I'm not saying that animators can't be detailed. It just feels so real that I feel like there has to have been a reference. Also, another technique that they're using is the whole like background and everything is animated in CG, but the character is animated in 2D, which is perfectly fine. But you get a little bit of like almost like parallax effect when you're zooming in and out, because the characters feel like they're staying in one place, like they don't have any depth to them, which they don't because they're 2D, and the background like zooms out and you can see things get proportionally smaller and bigger, where I feel like the 2D doesn't get as proportionally smaller or bigger. I don't think that's actually the case. I feel like it's just because they're like pieces of paper standing in a diorama type thing. But it's a really cool technique because it allows you to have those quick camera movements that work really well in like a sports scene, for example, without having to do everything CG and still keeping like the traditional good-looking 2D characters. So this is a good technique, but I really feel like they used the reference with tennis shots, so credit to them for doing that, because I've never seen sports animation done quite this well, except maybe in like Hanebado or something. Of course he holds back. He's just like, this isn't even my final form. I have to give everybody confidence so that they know what they're capable of. Who is this guy? He's in middle school. Come on, man. Katsuragi, stop living in people's heads and actually play some tennis. Come on. This is the president that dances at the end of the episode, and she's like pretty ruthless with her philosophy here. But this show is like a counterpoint to her, what she just said. This whole show is a counterpoint to that, because all the boys in the boys soft tennis club were completely useless. All they needed was one new transfer student in order to make them take the sport seriously and actually play. In 3 episodes now, they've gone from not playing tennis at all to actually competing in matches and being able to beat Shinjo Katsuragi team. So I feel like she's not accounting for the potential of change in people, which is kind of like a common fallacy that most people make, is they assume that people are just going to be the way that they are, and that might work for if you're like really old or really stuck in your ways and you haven't demonstrated change over a period of several decades. But for teenagers, that's not really the case at all. If you've ever known somebody who's younger than you, who was like 12 or 13, and you check back on them when they're 16, 17, they've changed completely as a person more often than not. So, President, you're in middle school. There's still a lot of capacity for change here. I feel like you should account for that as well. Yeah, you're right, Toma. Look at this. Like 2 episodes ago, they were like, who do you think you are walking here telling us what to do? And now they're just like, hey, Maki, you've got a new way for us to practice or whatever. Let's go, bro. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to train your lower body. And they're like, awesome. Let's get leg day in, guys. And they're just completely enthusiastic about it. It just shows you capacity for change, President. Maybe you should have taken this into account. Whoa, okay. I'll just take that one to the dome. I don't even know what to say. I'm just gonna take that L and go home. I'm fine with that. This guy's taking this way too much to heart. He's just basing every decision on the fact that they're grasshoppers. Bro, they're not that much of a energetic team. Like, they just got it together enough to even play some matches against each other. And you're putting up against like a legit soft tennis school team. Which, by the way, it's hilarious that there are even soft tennis schools. Like, in ping pong, there were ping pong academies, which makes sense because ping pong is like a much bigger sport than soft tennis is. But I guess there are soft tennis academies there too. Is this sport even real? Someone tell me if soft tennis is real. Ooh, this ending song is really good. Okay, let's watch the whole dance sequence again, then we'll talk about this episode. Whew, and another intense ending to another intense episode. Holy moly. What to say about that? So, I mean, his dad actually comes back after he was here in the first episode, and even takes time to say the words, friendship, effort, what is all that shit? I used to believe in that too. And it makes you think, like, the point of the show is to, like, contrast the kind of naive, you could even say gullible, like, trusting nature of the youth versus the kind of jaded, like, why do you even try? It's not going to work anyway. Nature of the adults. Mitsue gets called out for not believing that effort leads to results, and they say, "Oh, how you're so otonapoi, like you're so much of an adult." And that's kind of like the thesis of the show, I think, is that like adults are a certain way, kids are a certain way, and even if you are jaded as an adult, you can still see the resilience and kind of optimism of youth and be inspired by it, because that's what we see their supervisor do. He goes to an academy, talks to a junior that he hasn't talked to in years and years, even though there is an incident in his past that, you know, haunts him as well, and he's able to overcome that to some degree in order to help further the lives of the people underneath him. But of course that shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, because he is a teacher after all, and you know, teachers are really good at this kind of stuff. You know, that's why they get kind of sucked into it in the first place. There's a lot of teachers in my family, and they're all about helping kids out. You know, they do kind of unreasonable things sometimes to help kids out. And we all know that teacher that we've had once, whether it was in middle school or high school or whatever it was. They kind of stick with you, and that you know that whatever they said is gonna, you know, stay in your head for the remainder of your life. And whenever you think back to the people that have influenced you the most, chances are you think of at least one teacher who changed the way you think about things or inspired you to do something. So it's not too much out of the ordinary that their supervisor is able to do that. But unfortunately, Maki's dad isn't able to do that. And he's used as an example of someone who's unable to overcome the difficulties that they've had in their past, and they kind of succumb to the jaded nature of the world and don't really try to move forward in life in any meaningful capacity. He's coming to beat up his teenage son, stealing his money to make his ends meet. So, I mean, you can't get to be much more of a deadbeat than that. Ooh, well, what another good episode. They set up that whole relationship thing in the whole episode, and they were able to kind of make a counterplay on it, like flip it at the end to show that things don't always go this way. You know, the real world doesn't work this way. There was some discussion in the comments last week about how this show is one of the first to show like the more kind of cynical aspects of family life that you can get, like Toma's mother not really liking him at all, and Maki's mom being a single mom and having an abusive husband. So it's just one of those shows where it's anime in the sense that we get the kind of optimism and like relentless determination that we usually see from a shonen type sports show, but in this we also get like the counterpoint. We get the antithesis to that, which is the family life and like the abusive parents and just the complications that everyone can have in their life, and how even with those you can still kind of like cling to that shonen narrative of being stronger and like friendship and effort and all that stuff that Maki's dad made fun of. But as for me, that's it for this week. Hoshiai no Sora episode 4. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.